The average daily losses of the Russian army in May and June 2024 rose to the highest since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Over the 2 months, the Russian army lost more than 70,000 personnel killed and wounded, the UK intelligence service said. This is about a tenth of the total losses of the aggressor country's army since February 2022, experts have calculated.
Russia lost about 700,000 killed and wounded. This is almost the entire army that started the war on February 24, 2024. Therefore, at the moment, it is practically a renewal of the Russian armed forces, but with people who have not been under shelling and do not have a high level of combat training.
In order to compensate for losses without announcing a general mobilization, Moscow is actively recruiting foreign students to the front. The Bloomberg news agency has quoted European officials as saying students are threatened not to renew their visas if they refuse to fight against Ukraine. In addition, Russian security services are detaining nationals of African countries who are in Russia on work visas. They are given a choice between deportation or a contract with the defense ministry.
Смотри, принц.
Look, if there is a wall behind an obstacle or your trench, don't shoot because you will kill everyone.
The UK Ministry of Defense have stated that Russia's attempts to recruit citizens of African countries for the war against Ukraine are caused by a shortage of mobilization resource among prisoners. After all, the Kremlin used to place its main bets on them. Now migrants have become another target of the Kremlin.
Russian law enforcement have been conducting a campaign of legal harassment against particularly Central Asian migrants in an attempt to induce them to enlist in the armed forces of Russia in return for citizenship or to avoid arrest on invented charges, from the UK Ministry of Defense.
The authorities want to avoid growing discontent in Russia itself. Information about military operations broadcast by internal Russian propaganda is increasingly irritating the Russian population, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's main intelligence directorate have said, especially relatives of Russians who are being sent back to the front after being seriously wounded.
After discharge from any hospital, the guys are sent to Rostov, to a reserve unit or a reserve battalion, allegedly to pass the new military medical commission, but nobody passes it there. Commanders from different units come there and recruit sick, slanted, nervous, with just healed fractures and other problems into stormtroopers. What kind of stormtroopers would they be if they can't even carry a gun?
But despite all the efforts of Moscow authorities, the size of the Russian forces does not correspond to the task of conducting active offensive operations that the Russian command sets for the soldiers. Pro-Russian bloggers are already openly writing about this. Moscow does not publicly acknowledge this, but it is constantly increasing regional payments for signing a contract with the Ministry of Defense. In Karachay-Cherkessia, one of the poorest regions of the country, the amount of one-time payment to someone who has signed a contract to serve in the Russian army totaled 1.5 million rubles. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavska, Natalia Husak, Volodymyr Shtangelov, UATV News.